Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I hope everyone's having a great start to your day. I know it's tough to keep your smile up, but you have to on a day like today. I know one guy that's always smiling. BigBeat, how you doing this morning?
I think I posted this morning, markets in term oil. I think that's usually a CNBC title when the markets are falling apart like this. Look, I think the things you have to look at is, I said this last night after this lopsided tariff situation, that there are some things you need to look at in this market, but the recession chances now have jumped on Kalshi and Poly Market to 50%. This hasn't been that high in years. We've been talking about it on this show now for I don't even know how long now at this point. I have not been worried. I've been saying I'm not scared. It's one of my favorite sayings. I'm still not scared yet, but I will say that there's some things going on. Obviously, the 10 and the 30 year have inverted again. That's a problem. And you're seeing that the Bitcoin drop into under 82,000 again. But the one thing that I saw was oil. Oil now here at 66.91 barrel. You heard from John Ham, from Ham, Continental Resources, saying that he needs $80 a barrel to drill. Okay. Well, there you go.
Kirk Spano on our show yesterday too talked about, he deals with a lot of the oil guys, and again, they'll cap, they won't drill, and especially in certain areas for it to be profitable,
right?
You have to be at certain prices. My other thing, gold down too, right? So I think what our takeaway is global consumption. The pie just got smaller, right? Yeah. I think I was talking with you today. One of the goals of this was either, there was fentanyl. We need to stop fentanyl into the U.S., but that seems to be on the back burner because Mexico and Canada, no tariffs.
Right.
And I believe personally that has to do with the fact that they probably would have gone to court, right?
Here we go. Vietnam's trade minister now sends diplomatic note to the United States asking to postpone these tariffs, says that they are looking to, they're unfair. So maybe some of this, I said this morning that one of the questions that I have is who blinks, right? If Europe comes together as a bloc, right, and says, okay, you know what? Well, if we come together and we are going to go against the United States, you think 1,000 points down in the stock market? It's going to be 10,000 points down in the stock market, right? If Europe blinks and says, okay, we'll back off of our tariffs, stock market goes to the roof. Right, then it'll be happy again. Everybody's gonna be good. If Asia comes together and says, "Look, as a bloc, we will raise our tariffs on you," market's down 20,000 points because we buy a lot of Asian goods. So we need to be very, very careful about this. I think it needs to be now. Now he's swung the sledgehammer. Maybe the scalpel needs to come out. Now we're seeing a little bit of blinking here, which I kind of like. This is good actually. If we do back off of Vietnam a bit.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to be. Who blinks first, and how does that happen? Or does it happen? As you said, you were looking at oil, and to me, that's a sign that they think consumption is going to go way down. It isn't about supply there. That is just a consumption factor. Right. And the same way gold went down, right? So that pullback on gold had me a little nervous. It just tells me people are going directly into cash.
Well, I'm in the Dixie's at 101.55, so it means that foreign countries are now dumping the cash. You heard it yesterday or 2 days ago from Steve Flanagan telling you, look, if it goes above 104, we're going to go higher, right? But he says if it goes below 103.50, look out below, because he's saying, look, there it is, right? There's where we sell off, and it sold completely off in 101.58. That means foreign countries are dumping our dollars. Yeah, that's a problem. Right, that means they think that there's a bigger trade problem than we have.
You don't really have good support here until you get down to that under 101, quite frankly. So, you got threats of the dollar coming down. So far, market's definitely not liking it. We're down 37.30, which is about as big as you could get on advanced decline in the pre-market time. So, we'll see there if there's a change. The international currencies just keep moving everywhere. That's what has me so surprised.
Yeah, I mean, look at, but I don't think anybody even likes that because now Newsmax is down 11% this morning.
Yeah, Newsmax, I will point out a couple of things. We made it very clear that, your position yesterday towards the end of the day should be neutral. We weren't calling for this drop, but we were preparing for it in case it came. So hopefully you were listening to us there. The other one that we warned you time and time again the last few days was Newsmax, that this was going to sell off. The sell off from 280 to 47 is very reminiscent of what we showed you with DJT, and do not look for it for a bounce back. Just being quite honest with folks. Steve, I put together what is the positives on the day so far. There aren't a ton of them, but let's start to look through them here. AstraZeneca actually up about 5% here this morning. And if I can find my notes here on them.
Is that Nike down 15% this morning?
Yeah, Nike's one of the biggest losers here.
I mean, Howard Lutnick's Wall Street Journal now saying Europe will slow the pace of tariff retaliation. So, look, there's a couple things here that it's really kind of, I have a question mark around this. Look, people keep asking me all morning, and I was up till midnight last night with this stuff, and I'll tell you, I don't really know the answer yet. I don't even think this administration knows the answer yet. I think that it's a wait and see policy, and I think you're seeing Europe. I just mentioned this, right? That if Europe comes together and Asia comes together against us, it's not Dow down 1,200, it's Dow down 10,000. So we need to be careful here. I mean, okay, Swiss government now says that U.S. government's calculations on trade tariffs are incomprehensible. Yeah, I'm thinking Europe might come together here. Now I'm getting nervous. If you start to see these kind of headlines, you should get nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't any good news here. As you mentioned, a lot of the people getting hit the hardest, Five Below, Deckers, Crocs, all these companies that Dollar Tree that need Nike, that need stuff from Vietnam, Thailand, China, all those countries, just down double digits across the board. Five Below down 20%, Lululemon down 15% here. They're just, they keep going. Shopify down 12%. Robinhood down 11.4%, Lyft down 10%, Best Buy down 12%, Tempest AI down 10%. The laggards, unfortunately, is a very robust list, and the things moving to the upside. You got, I'm including stuff up 20 basis points in my gainers here this morning on my watch list, because that's how bleak it is so far today. The things that people are talking about is, that there's a little bit, maybe Bank of America came out. They were the ones that said AstraZeneca, due to some of their key pipeline catalysts, had some things going on. So you got a little news in the biotechs. Another one, Sanofi, they had an upgrade, so they're moving to the upside a little bit, but not a lot here. Like I said, you're really seeing it hit across the board.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I have been talking about is the 10-year, right? We've been talking about, Trump has been saying he wants the Fed to cut rates. Well, they're going to cut rates now. 4.025%. I think we saw something like 15 basis points getting just wiped off of the bond market yesterday. If you think there's not a collapse in the bond market, here we go. This is, flight to safety here. And if you don't understand what I'm saying here, the reason that we're lowering rates is because money is coming into the bond market, right? They don't have to raise rates. When the bond market needs money, it has to raise rates for money to come in the bond market to pay bills. So as the markets are selling off, gold is selling off, it has to go into a safe haven, and it's going into the market.
To the bonds.
Right.
What you said. Yeah.
What's happening is they don't need to keep the rates up. They just keep selling our rates off, because guess what? Then that makes things cheap to borrow, right?
Steve, I do think that people could probably use a little bit more of an explanation on that. So when we sell 10-year treasuries, or when we're talking about it, so the government does an auction and they sell them, and there's actually buyers and they bid on what they want to pay for those. So it does move the needle. And what Steve's saying is right now people are out of everything else and saying, I'll take 4% on a 10-year because that's safer than going into a recession and losing 20%, as Steve was just saying, in the markets. So what that does is it lowers the bond rates down because there's very active bidding. There's a lot of people trying to buy those 10 years and 30 years right now.
Yeah, I mean, you and I'm hearing now Trump tariffs are set to wipe out nearly $2 trillion from the stock market today. All right, so it's a very good question. All right, so we do have what they call an auction, and that is there are two types of buyers. There's what we call directs and indirects, and the direct buyers are those buyers that are already there's like a little window that you can buy, and they go down to the Fed and they buy, and they say, we'll take $1 trillion worth of your bonds, but I'm not paying this. It's an auction, right? And then there's the indirects, which is let's say JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and I want to buy bonds, and that's an indirect, right? So you want to look at what the indirects numbers are and the indirect numbers are and the percentages, and they give those out after the auction. You probably see Rick Santelli on CNBC going, "Hey, I give this auction a C or a D, depending on what it is, or an A or B." He'll explain the auction, but you can go 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. We call it 52-week, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 10 year, 5 year, 10 year, 30 year, and it gives you a better chance to see what rates are going to be in the future. And you can look at the forward curves and backwardation and contango, and I can go through that later. But right now, we're seeing. I mean, I think we might go through the 4% handle here in a few minutes here, maybe. If that's the case, then Trump got his lower rates without any. Yes, he slaughtered the market to do it, but
yeah, I mean the only, I guess, the silver lining for me is that I have as I've been talking about, I have one free refinance on my mortgage. It looks like I'll actually get to use that, which I didn't think was going to be the case.
And I'm glad you are, but I think it's too much right now. I mean, I've been calling.
It is. As I'm saying, that's the only silver lining I have is.
I mean, those of us that. Rates, but the Fed should have lowered the rates, right? And if they had lower rates, people would have been happier. We would have got through this. And I think the Fed made a mistake again.
Well, and I think it's like we talked about Lucky Charts and Happy Capitulation Day. Without a doubt, we're definitely seeing that. And I'd say it's a flight to cash day. Lucky Charts, flight to cash. And the big part that you and I talked about this morning that I continue to harp on is a couple of things. Is that pie is just getting smaller, so no one wins in that case, not in the U.S. or anywhere else when it comes to the tariffs. And the fact that there's this big push by Lutnick and Bessent and the Trump administration to push that we need to become the leaders in production, not just consumption anymore. And you had some comments on that earlier. What do you think about those comments that they had on CNBC earlier?
I mean, you asked me that 2 weeks ago, Howard, and I said, look, you want to lower rates, you want to fix the problem. We as consumers in the United States need to slow a roll a bit. Like I just said yesterday, you go into Costco, you want to buy that new TV, maybe don't do it, right? And that's not good. We want consumption. We want the markets moving. We want new TVs in our homes. We want to grow. We want to be bigger. We want to be better. And those cheap TVs come from Vietnam, they come from China, they come from South Korea. And when we add tariffs to it, the only person that's hurting is us, right? Now you lower rates, great. Now we borrow more money. That makes a lot, now we spend more money from the credit card companies. And guess what? I heard delinquencies in autos and credit cards are at an all-time high, right? And that's a problem.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah, absolutely. Credit card debts, defaults on mortgages, all that type of stuff. As someone who luckily his car was able to get fixed, as you know, I was dealing with an issue with my car. I mean, you're talking about the prices I looked at last week going up $15,000. You know, I'm like, I thank God you know, it's, you know, it takes you out of a BMW and into a Honda real quick, doesn't it? Not that there's anything wrong with a Honda. I'm just using
Well,
it as an
no, I think it
example.
takes you out of either one of those and goes into
Right.
Ford or General Motors, right? Because that's what he's trying to get you to do. But guess what? I mean, Paul Rand, who is the senator from Kentucky, was like, wait a minute. No, I make Toyotas and Nissans in Kentucky.
Right.
No, I don't like this, right? I think, you know, Alaska, Lisa Murkowski said, wait a minute. I pump oil. I'm an exporter of oil. Wait a minute. You know, a lot of Republicans voted against and you know, most people don't realize this, but the executive orders only are as good as long as the president's in power, right? So those EOs go out the door almost immediately, right? So and the Senate can override him in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of things here that can happen. You know, Elon Musk stepping down from, I guess we're hearing from the president in the White House saying that Elon will be backing out soon. That should push Tesla up a little bit. And he can get back to work on Tesla and fixing Twitter, because we know how Twitter goes up and down all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, I think there's some good there too as well. I think Doge did a pretty good job cutting some of the things, but you know, maybe cutting nuclear people at the button maybe not being a good idea, right? Cutting people at NIH and HHS that are doctors that you know, protect us from measles and smallpox might not have been a good idea. But you know, when you look at it from an overall perspective, maybe he did save some money, maybe saw some waste in it. But you went to go touch Social Security, and you're going to have pitchforks and burning of homes, marching on Washington very quickly. Old people will they vote, and they don't like it when you touch your Social Security. So that probably wasn't a smart move. But you know, look, I don't like talking politics too much. It just is what it is, because it's just it's in our face now, right now, because of it, right? And I think that, you know, I think China is going to retaliate. I think Asia is going to come together. I think you're going to see EU start to come together. And yeah, you said it right there. Look at that Nike. I mean, Nike's down almost 40%.
Yeah, now it's this. I did this, and I only did this an hour ago, so
right.
It's not,
I mean,
like
it's not.
This is outdated data. It is outdated data, unfortunately, but this was just done an hour ago. You know, you can see it was trading.
Maybe I'll buy those new Nike shoes that I've been looking to buy. Those new DNA8s. I held off on buying them, right?
I mean, I got to assume we'll see the sales, right? You know, they got to do something to try to get people back into the stores. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It definitely is tough for sure right now. I will say, Steve, I mean, I'm starting to look at some of the Mag 7 again and say, okay, again, everybody, if you're looking to start to put stuff into a long-term portfolio, where do you want to start to look at it? You know, NVIDIA, as everybody knows, one of my favorites. I don't think AI is going anywhere. I don't think that the need for NVIDIA chips, and it is nicely in that zone of liquidity I talked about that I think is a good buy zone here. You know, I'm going back here and looking at what was going on in May of 2024, August of 2024, and September of 2024. And as you can see, we've had a nice little zone of buying here in those three areas. So again, it worked here in March, and I'm looking at it as a nice little zone here for a longer term play on NVIDIA. Start to look at Apple. Apple gets a little rougher for me. They got hit the hardest here, down 205.
I'm nervous on my NVIDIA position. You know, I'm at 105.15. Not because I think it's out of whack, because I don't. I think it's okay. I think we're still gonna make money on it. I liked it better the other day when it was at 110. But this is concerning, right? I mean, NVIDIA makes chipsets in Asia, in Vietnam, and in Taiwan, and those places, and chipsets. This is not good.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to buy a computer, you're looking to buy Apple. Apple moved out of China. They went to Vietnam, and Vietnam got the highest tariffs. I mean, you're hitting your own companies. I don't. This is really, yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, then, like I said, Apple, I'm looking more down in this 200, 198 areas where you can see historically in August of 2024, And more importantly here, it was the resistance zone throughout 2023 that Apple was unable to break across. So these tend to be good zones of areas where you can start to nibble into a position if you're looking for things to recover.
They're already calling out the Trump session. Wow.
Microsoft's got a little bit of support here. I'm interested to see if it will hold up in the 365 area. If not, again, I'm looking at that round number around 350 as a spot for it to fall back down that I would look at maybe as a consolidation area. Google, who's down 4.5% here, trading at 151.80. Again, 148.27, very strong support back in September of 2024. It was where it fought resistance and support here in March of last year and from January to March, first quarter. So we'll see if it can do anything from that spot. It's also where it had maxed out in November of 21 before retracing. So, there's some things if you start to zone out further and further to the left where you can start to look for areas where maybe you want to see a little bit of accumulation. Well, CJ asked, wasn't semiconductors excluded from the tariffs? In part, yes. In part, no, because once they're in a computer, if that computer is not put together in the U.S., that's where it gets hit. If it goes into an Apple phone, that Apple phone still gets hit.
That's right.
So, yes, the semiconductor itself for the first initial sell is exempted for some of this. But what it is going to be, CJ, is you're going to get hit on the back end when you go and that gets put into something and then sold, because as many NVIDIA chips as they sell directly to consumer, it's really the fact that it goes into producers who then sell us a secondary good.
Again, it goes
great question.
It's the consumer, not the wholesaler, and that's what we're saying. Like, it's hurting American people and not the. I mean, it's just I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. And we've talked about this for a while. Tariffs have never worked. The last time we did a tariff, we went into recession. Looks like we're going to recession now. The world's telling you that. We went to recession. And before that, it was the 1920s, went into depression. So this is not a good situation. But, look, if gambling with the American people's money and gambling with the country is not where I think we should be. But if Trump pulls this off, he'll be the best president in history where he would have reset the.
Well, like I said, it is a new world order if it works, right? Or it goes back to the world order of right after World War II, where we are both the production and consumption kings, and King Dollar also can make its move back up at that point. Yeah, I mean, he's putting all his. I will say this: he's putting all of the chips in the middle, and he's ready to call.
But the difference is the world was burning after World War II. Most of Europe was in rubble. I mean, Russia was in trouble.
There was nobody else. We
were the only country around. Pretty much, Japan was in rubble. Asia was in rubbles. I mean, it was a mess, right? And so World War II was a different situation. And because of that, there was a boom in from 1947 to 1961. And that boom was the baby boomers. That's what we call them, baby boomers, right? Came out of that. And they went to work in the 60s and 70s and the 80s, and they collected money in the 80s of Reagan. And they invested. And now here they are. They're all retired. They retired about 15, 20 years ago, and they're all dying off now. The great wealth transfer. So this wealth transfer, look, it could pay off, but what did I just say? Less than 10 minutes ago that I think the 10-year will go below 4%, 4.025. I mean, we're getting close. We're getting very close on the 10-year.
The 10-year is down 2.5%. That's
absolutely
a lot in a day. That's a ton. I mean, the same thing. DXY.
Here we go. Chrysler parent Stellantis now says it will temporarily pause production of 2 plants in Mexico and Canada after new tariffs.
And again, this goes to that discussion we just had about the semiconductors. It's not that, again, you might say, well, that makes no sense because they just exempted the cars from the U.S. and Mexico. Yeah, but no one can buy them, so there's no reason to produce them if you can't.
And you got to ship them. So now the shippers,
if you can't, right?
It's tax on top of tax on top of tax on top of tax. It's not like we're gonna make something and then ship it to the United States and then it's a 20% tariff. It's a tariff on top of a tariff on top of a tariff. We're going to tariff the rubber that goes onto the tire, and we're going to tariff the tire that goes on the and we're going to tariff. I mean, it just becomes exacerbated over time, and then at sometime, yeah, okay, now we're going to. Yeah, the semiconductor itself doesn't get tariffed, but then there's a person that puts it in the machine.
Well,
it gets tariffed because they're consuming a new TV, and their tariffs. It just gets worse and worse, and that's why we have inflation. So now that's why the Fed is saying we have to wait before we lower rates because we don't know what the tariffs are going to do. Right?
I am seeing India Trade Ministry source says India will hold virtual meetings with the U.S. on a bilateral deal this month. So we want to see that. I want to see more confirmation of that. What it is we're seeing, again, it's what I talked to you about this morning, Steve, right? What worries me is CEOs are backed into a corner, in my opinion. A lot of alpha personalities, people who don't like to have this happen to them, are having to go to their public, right, to the people who buy their stock and explain why their stock's going to be down. So what I'm worried about is that every forward guidance we get in any earnings report is going to be horrendous.
We already saw that.
Yeah,
I mean, every guidance is bad.
That is something that worries me. I brought that up this morning to you, is that's where I think the difference has really shifted now. We're seeing all these CEOs say, I don't have an answer. You did this in a way that doesn't give me any wiggle room.
And he didn't ask the CEOs. He did not ask the CEOs. The only CEO he has within this circle and Camelot is Howard Lutnick. Right, Commerce Secretary, who's CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and that's a problem, right? Scott Bessent, and you would think that there were calmer heads inside the White House. It's not right now, and he went at it. So, look, I support the president. If he is still my president, and it is what it is. And my thoughts are that this isn't going to work, and that's my personal opinion. And I'm pretty good at this. I've been doing this for a long time, Howard. Yeah. I understand economics. I have 2 college degrees in it, a graduate degree in it. So I think I kind of know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for a long time. It doesn't make sense. But, look, I will say that if he's going to bang the desk, if he's going to swing the sledgehammer, which he did, and the market's will open here about a minute and a half, let's see how it goes. If I were thinking here straight, and I'm thinking, this could be a great buying opportunity. And I said that last time on the Spaces show with Scott Bauer, that, buy with both hands this morning if this is the case. I didn't think it would be this far down, but you've given us a better chance to buy. I like Nike at 56.01 here. I like the better at 55 this morning, even better. But I like Nike here. Yeah, I think Vietnam will blink because they make a lot of Nike products, right? I think Vietnam will blink because they make a lot of Apple products. So I think there'll be some blinking here.
Again, we're 1 minute from the open. I've pointed out the spots where I'm looking at the Mag 7 for buys. That's where I'm sort of starting again. I don't see any reason to get out of the biggest ones. Those are
I think what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to buy some Bitcoin here. I think this is a nice buy down here for Bitcoin.
There you go. Yeah, 82, not a bad area. So
I'm buying Bitcoin right now.
There you go. Steve's buying some Bitcoin here just below 82,000. I didn't look at the chart yet today on Bitcoin, to be honest with you. Steve, I would put that in at 80, 85 or so, 80 in that range.
I just went long at 81. Looks like 81,975.
Okay. I do think we'll see a little sell-off on the cash open as these ETFs reschedule. So that's the only thing there. Here we go. We are open. Let's see what we get. Advanced decline minus 56.91. Never seen a number that high personally. Although I don't remember what it was at on March 16th, 17th of 2020 there during COVID. Tick negative 311. QQQ is down 4%, but the first move is to the upside here. So we do see a little bit of buying.
82,000. There we go. Come on, Bitcoin.
82. Maybe we get the quick buys here. Here we go. We're challenging VWAP already on the Qs. I love to
82
see that.
1, 82 2.
Here we go. 457.50 is your area on the Qs to keep an eye on. Bitcoin.
We're now hearing that traders are now betting that there will be a 50% chance of a fourth cut this year.
I did see that just before the open. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of cutting there because it's already April. So, I mean, you're going to have to cut like almost every meeting now.
Starting off pretty well so far, 458.25. Tick is slightly negative still. Advanced decline still at negative 56.70. So if I had to guess, the Mag 7's what's getting a little bit of a bounce here. And we do see NVIDIA back above 104 here, trying to break 104.50.
82.2 there on, yeah. I mean, the tick's pretty flat here, 260 down.
Apple's still getting hit here, though. Apple's the one still getting
Look
hit
at Nike at 57.26. You got a hell of a deal this morning. You know, look, if this is the case, I think it's lowest level since November of 2017. You got yourself a hell of a deal. 82.3 now on Bitcoin. So if you listened to me this morning, you were doing okay here. 82.370 now. How about them apples?
VIX back up at 26.40 here.
I think shorting the VXX is probably the thing here. Maybe buying puts against it. I think getting, you know, this is a buying opportunity here. If anybody blinks, this market's going to go through the roof. 57.65 now on Nike. There you go. Tick's about to go positive here. There it is. Tick down 42. Tick could go positive here. Tick down 5. 82.4 now on Bitcoin. 57.90 now on Nike. You had a buying opportunity this morning on the open. These are numbers you haven't seen in years. There it goes. Tick now up 60. We called it. So look, I think that 82.5 now on Bitcoin. Advanced decline now still minus 55.70. So you got to be careful here. You know, look, if you need to take some profit.
That's the only thing. I'm not getting too bullish here personally.
No, I don't think you do. But, tick up 150 now. You don't have to get bullish. You just have to take some profit. I mean, look, I think that, yeah. And Mexico's President Sheinbaum says the country has built a good relationship with the United States with dialogue and cooperation after Trump's tariffs announcement. So, look, I think that you're going to start to see some of these countries
trying to break across 460 here.
82.7 now on Bitcoin. 82.730 now. There goes tick up. Ticks now at 400. Sheinbaum says lack of new U.S. tariffs on Mexico is good for the country. Right.
Yeah, I mean, again, Mexico, I guess it's not about the fentanyl because they don't get the tariffs. I also think he did that because, that treaty would have gone to court immediately.
Yeah, it would have gone to court. CMCSA, for those of you who don't know, it's the next NAFTA. And free trade is free. This is what happens when you have free trade. Free trade is good, right? Make better products. Have better, consumption should be 58.39 for those of you who are watching me on Nike this morning. I thought that was a good, you're at 4% already on Nike.
Nice jump up there.
Now I think some profit could be, it's probably taking a little bit here. A little bit. We do have some numbers here this morning. We will see S&P Global PMI numbers that's coming out at 10 o'clock here. No, I'm sorry, 10 minutes here, I should say. And then ISM numbers, nat gas numbers. And then, of course, at 11:30, we were just talking about the 4-week bill auction. So that it could be there, 58.15 now on Nike.
Mexico's economy minister will be in D.C. next week, so pressure is still not completely off of Mexico and Canada. It does look like they are both coming to the table, though.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like this taking some profit off here because I think the selling was a little too much. But I think
not able to break above that 460. That seems to be the spot to keep an eye on so far on the Qs. 460. Personally,
I like this. I'm not selling my Bitcoin. I like it. I think I got a hell of a deal.
A little bit here. Bitcoin pulling back a little bit. 82,300 here. Let's see if we can bounce off VWAP here on the Qs and continue up, or do we see that first initial buy get sold off across the board? Tick back pretty neutral here, right around 100. Mag 7, you can see NVIDIA 104.42, so it has moved off of the lows of the day. Apple at 205.30 has gained a little bit of breathing room from that 204.60 area it opened up at. Microsoft is at the lows of the day, so Microsoft, one of the ones hurting here still this morning. Google down 3.59% again off of the lows of the day. Amazon down 6.83% towards the lows, but at 182.16 was the low so far. Meta down 7.25% again at the lows of the day. So we see Microsoft and Meta still at lows of the day. Tesla trying to move back up a little bit here, 272. That's closer to the highs of the day. And Netflix at 914.49 got as low as 947. So we are seeing a nice bounce back by the stronger names like we talked about.
There we go. Mike, you're about to go back over 58 here. Tick just went negative here. But I think we go right back up. I think if you didn't get your sell in and you're holding and you're being tough here, we could go right on up. Nike at 58 again. I mean, Amazon down how much here? 7%?
Yeah. Meta down 7.11%. Apple down 8%.
I mean, Amazon was 250 not too long ago. Yeah, you're getting a heck of a buys down here. I think shopping, you get your shopping cart loaded up today. I think it's probably a good day.
Yeah. Banks getting hit pretty hard like everything else. Bank of America down almost 9% here this morning. Morgan Stanley down 8.07%. Citigroup down 8.39%. So again, a lot of the bigger banks getting hit here. The only thing for some reason,
take positive again.
Royal Bank of Canada is actually up today, 1.38%. On the chips again, if you're looking for the biggest laggards on the day, Micron down almost 8% here so far. And then you have both broadband and TSM down just about 5.5%. Crypto stocks getting hit pretty hard too. Galaxy Digital, actually up 4.72%. That is a Canadian company. MSTR down about 5%. Coinbase down 7%. Mara down 7%. So a lot of the Bitcoin companies getting hit pretty hard here. On the restaurant side, again, a flight to McDonald's still in the works here. McDonald's up 2.16%. Yum up 1.38. QSR up 1.82. We've pointed out over the last few days that restaurant stocks or especially fast food restaurants, were best geared to handle this as they buy most of their stuff domestically and sell most of their stuff domestically. Healthcare is definitely the green on the day. UNH up 2.3. Elevance up 2.41. So, Steve, we're seeing a nice move up by almost all of the healthcare companies.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's having a heart attack today and going to the hospital. I mean, they're opening up their 401k plans and going, I'm having a brain aneurysm today, right?
I do feel like I have a stomach ache today. I think my flu's moved to my stomach, but I don't know if it's that or just looking at these markets.
Tick now up almost 300 here. So, yeah. Yeah, tick up 300 here, and look, things are okay. I mean, the sell-off sucks. I mean, it's not if you were, but I'm okay with this. This is grocery bag day, as I call it. Load the grocery bags up. If you had stocks you wanted to buy, today's the day to buy them. Yes, could the market go lower? Yes. Are you trying to catch a falling knife? All the adages everybody's going to say to me, yeah, probably. But you've got a heck of a deal here. If you like Nike at 65 and 70, you like it at 57. I love it at 57.
So looking at the things that are moving to the upside so far today, Lamb & Wesson up about 10%. Again, U.S.-based potatoes. They grow them here. They sell them here. Goodyear Tire actually up 6.69. Again, people are going to be fixing their cars if they can't afford to buy new ones. Goodyear, while they also make tires, has one of the largest networks of service centers across the U.S. We also see some of the REITs that Steve likes SBAC, and AMT, American Tower Corporation, one of your favorites, Steve, up 5%. So a lot of defensive plays moving to the upside today.
I mean, a real defensive play would be Realty Income, and that's one of my favorites. Is ticker literally the ticker's O. Pays a nice dividend, and I think it pays 5.5%. It's a REIT. When these companies like McDonald's that do own their own land, some don't, but a lot of places don't own their own land, and that's what Realty Income does, ticker O. And they have the land that people are actually paying the bills.
Yes, and a lot of those companies don't own their properties; they lease them, and what they have is they have a partner who buys the land. So if Steve wants to build a CVS in Wesley Chapel, he goes to CVS and says, "Hey, I'd like to build one here." They talk to O Realty, and O Realty says, "Yeah, this location, we'll finance it, we'll do it." Steve gets his CVS for a lower fee. He pays rent to O, and it's sort of a built-in deal. So they're a built-in client. And again, ticks back
market fill
a
it
little
out.
bit negative, down about 5495. Q's 458. Steve, I'm on the opposite. I think it looks to me like a little bit of a slide down day. I don't think it's going to be a big loss from where we're at now. I think it's going to be mostly sideways. 100%. I don't think we see I've called for the melt up the last few days. We've done it each day. It just seems a little different to me today. It doesn't seem like we have that.
They're waiting on to see what the world does.
Yeah, we want to see someone blink first. Who blinks first is going to be the word of the day, for sure.
I mean, it's a gamble. I mean, it's like going to craps table right now, and gambling with the United States government is not a happy place for me. I don't like it. Neither does the market. If there's anything the market does not like, it's uncertainty, and there's a lot of uncertainty today. So this makes me nervous. Because I don't get nervous about the markets, but this one does, because you're not just gambling with maybe a stock or two. This is the whole world you're talking about, and how we fit in that world, a new world order. And a lot, I guess, what you've been saying, right? So, Poland's now saying that they're going to be cutting their rates. So, yeah, I mean, if you see rates cuts all over the world, my goodness.
That seems India's central bank will not conduct a 14-day repo for its upcoming weekend when it normally does. So, wow.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. There's no reason for it.
Saying, listen, we're just going to hold off. So that's almost like India saying, we're not trading today.
Let's look back at Nike here. Again, 57.76. So, it's holding that 57, 58 handle right in that area. I like this here. And what's interesting is Vietnam got hit the hardest, and that's where Apple moved to. I mean, these companies moved to Vietnam. So I don't. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you hit the country? Because you're hurting the United States, right? And that's why I don't understand. So, okay. But I still like Nike down here. 57.93. I had a feeling that
the last time you could buy Nike at this price was in 2017.
So yeah, I said this morning. Yeah, right. You're getting a heck of a deal here on Nike. Unless you think nobody's gonna wear shoes anymore. I don't know. It's not my thing. I think people will wear shoes, and I like the new DNA. So I think I'm gonna buy a pair.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Nike, as you know. Everything they just did in their earnings report was forward thinking, and the new CEO has got a good plan, and they're going to focus back on athletes, not on as much on fashion, because they realize fashion's too fickle. Athletes are loyal to their brands. I can tell you that from my past experience. Try to get somebody to trade a helmet out in football. It's impossible.
Right.
So. And as Steve mentioned, up 1% here this morning. One of my favorites, SJM, which is Smucker's, up 1.54%. So we do think people are going to be buying more peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, Steve.
I mean, that's about bread and peanut butter slapped on with jelly in it. Yeah, probably. I mean, one thing I'm going to look at right here, and I'm looking at Hasbro down 10% here. That's
all those Hasbro, Mattel, all of those are really down
10%. Look, Hasbro, Barbie, and GI Joe isn't going away. And they have cartoons and things of that nature too. That in games they have. I mean, mobile gaming is pretty big with Hasbro. I think you've got Monopoly and places and things like that. So, woof. Another good pickup there for Hasbro if you like the gaming side of things from them. Barbie's going nowhere. GI Joe's going nowhere.
Right, Mattel, the same thing. You're not going to get rid of Hot Wheels. You're not going to get rid of their connections to the Avengers and to all of their Disney connections that they have on that side. Those are things you want to look at. Nike, your staples of different.
And speaking of Disney, I mean, $93 a share on Disney. That is just a steal. Right? I mean, as you all know, anything under 100 is a buy. Anything over 110 is probably a sell. Disney at 93 is that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Like I said, this is when you start to look at some of these ones that have, for your long-term portfolio, especially if you're saying, hey, I wasn't in consumer discretionary and I want to get into retail. So maybe Nike is the one down 11.3% here this morning. If you're looking at, just any sector has some of the stalwarts, they're all down. Delta Airlines down another 7% here at $40.
Yeah, businesses aren't going to be going overseas. They're just not. And that's where they make their money, business travel. Anybody have any stocks out there that wants to look at? I mean, we're happy to look at them for you. It's not all about us. Bring it on. Come on, Lucky Charge. CJ, talk to us. Tell us what stocks you want to look at. We'll look at them.
I would say I like Delta down. If it gets down this 37 area, you can see historical support here on multiple occasions. What was resistance here and consolidation back in 2023. Delta Airlines getting close to a pretty good spot. I think there's a lot of things that are close to good spots here. If we get a little bit of a slide today. Like I said, I've focused more on the MAG than anything else, but there's good value to be had across all sectors here. This is when you want to start to look at PE valuations and things like that, in my personal opinion. I know valuations don't matter till they matter, but I want to buy value.
Right now don't matter right now. Charts don't matter.
Yeah.
Only thing that matters are headlines right now. If you're pro, as I've been saying for the last few weeks, if you're pro clutching your charts, you're wrong. I mean, you're wrong, and you're trying to make up for what your charts tell you. Look, we just talked about it, right? Nike's at 2017 levels, right? That's what's part of it holding it up. That's about as good as your charts are worth right now. That's what I'm saying. Right now, there's nothing in this, but we're waiting on headline news, right? Wow. Best Buy getting downgraded by Citigroup now, BBY.
Yeah, they get everything. I mean, just think about it. They're out
15% here. Look, if you think the world's going to end, then great. Then you're probably right at 64.74. If you think the world's not going to end and things will get back on track, then it goes right back up. And I you know what, I like Best Buy going into the holidays because Best Buy is one of those things that go back up during the right before the holidays. And okay, here we go. U.S. March S&P Global Composite now coming in at 53.5. That was actually the number, so that it came in line. So that's okay. I like that number. That's a good number. Considering everything
did sort of settle down in this 4.03 area here, so it doesn't look like we're getting under that 4 yet. Bitcoin's back at 82.1 here. Qs have pulled back to 457 after challenging 460 earlier this morning. So again, a little bit of a slide. To me, it seems like a downward slow slide today.
Oops.
The Ruts, the big loser so far, small market caps down 4.61 here. Back down at 1951.
Tesla is now down negative now on the day, down 1%. Tesla was positive on the day, but not anymore.
The Ruts down 21% from its highs. Bitcoin holding up pretty well at 82,300 here
Yeah,
for
I
you,
like
Steve.
this. I like
Found a
this a
decent
lot.
little bottom here on the 1 minute chart, right at that 82,150 area. So starting to rebound off of there. So that's good to look at.
I
Gold
like
at
the
30.90.
Tesla might be a good buy down here at 270.
Like you said, that one's a headline one I can't even look at personally. We're seeing some of the ones that were up early in the pre-market holding up pretty well. AstraZeneca still up 3.9%. VOD Vodafone up 3.3%. SNY, which is the Sanofi, the drug company that got 2 novel drugs approved today, up 2.95%. We see nice move up by AT&T here, up 2.52. So again, some of these defensive plays, Procter & Gamble up 2.24%. They're calling that the toilet paper ratio right now, is that people are back out buying all the toilet paper everywhere again.
I have a closet full of it, so I'm okay.
And Verizon up nicely at 2.26% here. So there is,
there
are some things to the upside.
Yeah, it ticks back up 118. I think the first selling was done, but I think you're right. I think we're going in the 10 o'clock hour. Let's see how that goes. But Nike at 57.25 here now. So, if you didn't get into it, this could be right. Morningstar now coming out now saying, if implemented, is bound to slow the U.S. economic growth in near term, raise consumer prices and firms' input costs. So Morningstar going up pretty negative on this as well.
Tick is still negative here. Advanced decline sticking below that 5,600 level here to the downside. Dow Jones down almost 3%. SPY down 3.21%. Q's down 3.68, but trying to make a move back up towards that 460 there again. I think that's the area to watch this morning. We're up down 4.56. Bitcoin did bounce off of that 82,200 area. Nice move back to the upside to 82,464 here.
So when we don't talk about politics too much, I mean, listen, I just said this morning, right? That this morning, Senator Rand Paul a few minutes ago just said that when President McKinley, and I just mentioned McKinley's name this morning, actually, most famously put tariffs on in the 1890s. They lost 50% of the seats. In the early 1930s, we lost the House and Senate for 60 years. That's what I said last time. That's what I said in the last 2 shows ago. This is very bad politically for the White House. I guess they need to think about this when they think about it. So it's not only bad for them, as he says, economically, but bad politically as well. And I said this, that the Republicans will lose the House and the Senate over this.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll point out too is if we look at our currency heat map here, are we winning down 2.38 versus the euro, down 1.96 versus the yen, down 1.22 versus the sterling, down 2.84 versus the Swiss franc, down 1.74 versus the Aussie dollar, and down 1.5% versus the Canadian dollar. So seeing a drop across all of those. As we take a look, again, this is using Quasar Markets heat maps here from TradingView. You can see technology just getting drilled, electronics getting killed, finance getting killed, retail, trade. Health technology is the leader so far. We can see Johnson & Johnson up nicely. AbbVie up pretty good. Abbott up. Merck up. Amgen up. So we do have some winners there. Gildan up in that sector. We do have winners in the utility sectors like we talked about here. Duke Energy up nicely, along with NEE, SO, AEP, and Excelsior. So we do have some of the energy. These are all defensive plays that are moving to the upside. Steve, the only thing I warn of getting too far into these defensive plays are these are going to get played out pretty quickly, in my opinion, right? And if the other stuff starts to move up, they'll be where the ones that money jumps out of. So I do want to warn people, if you are now just looking at defensive stocks, it's probably too late. We brought these up to you over the last week or so because you wanted to get into these before. Again, it's like buying VIX. You don't buy VIX today because it's already at a hugely elevated level because you need it. You buy it before you do these defensive stocks. You're going to see some of these, start to slow down. You got Procter & Gamble up 2.2%. Coke is up. Philip Morris.
I'm really liking this move here on Tesla below 270. I think I'm going to make a buy here on Tesla here under 270. I'm going to go at market here.
So Steve, getting into Tesla here. I love it. Getting into a trade. I myself am still sitting on my hands here so far today.
269.47. I'm long.
Okay.
Write it down, Howard.
So Steve Long here on Tesla at 272 now. So nice move to the upside for his first moves in that. NVIDIA back at 104.83 here. So we are seeing a little bit of the mag gain, a little bit of strength so far. Apple now only down 9.16% to 203.42. Had gotten down another percentage point to 202.52 earlier this morning. Tick is still negative about 500. Advanced decline continuing to move to the downside. VIX at 2680 here, highly elevated. But, we know just a few weeks ago it was back up at 30. So still has room to the upside. Like we said, you don't want to be buying that protection now. You need
Nissan says that they will pause the Mexico assembly line, meeting output goals. Nissan Motor now will suspend production at one or two vehicle assembly lines at its plant in Mexico, according to Nikkei. They are separately going to end the production of the pickup trucks at the French partner Renault as well this year. Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I said, my worry was exactly that CEOs are sort of pushed into a corner and they're going to come out almost swinging more than we're seeing from the politicians because they just backed into a corner.
Wow.
So they're just saying, hey, we'll stop it. You won't have to tariff it. We won't make it.
Right. And that'll push prices up too. So if you want a Nissan truck, prices are going to go up because
more expensive tremendously.
Supply and demand, less supply, more demand. It's just this is really bad. This is not good. It's just not good. But we'll see if they blink, the world blinks, then we win. But if they don't, the president could be in a lot of trouble.
Well, and I also wonder, I don't know that the world's going to blink. I think, we're seeing Mexico and Canada blink because they're going to partner with the U.S. and they feel that they can get an upper hand. And we are so much a percentage of their exports. Will we see the same, or will we see Europe, sort of bandy together? Will we see Asia bandy together like you spoke about? And do they start partnering more to sort of, serve their own interests?
Pandora, the company, says they expect to be able to fully mitigate the $250 million related to Canada, Latin America tariffs. So, okay. I like this Tesla move here, 273 now.
Yeah, buddy. Nice move.
Tick now flat on the day.
Do you see Chinese policy advisors told the MNI that trade negotiations between China and the U.S. are likely to start soon, given President Trump's penchant for deal-making, but a quick settlement looks difficult?
Yeah, I don't think Xi Jinping cares. You talk about nationalistic. I mean, China is nationalistic. They don't care. So I don't see this happening. What is RH? Where are we with RH? That is
RH was down tremendously. Restoration Hardware had a earnings yesterday. I actually had
that 41% down.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Look, I go into our Restoration Hardware and I, in the mall and I don't see who the hell's buying that stuff. To be honest with you, it's too expensive to me.
Yeah, I mean this one
Report
this
it.
is a
I just don't see it.
tough one here. Yeah, they've been down. They gave a terrible revenue forecast moving forward. So
And a lot of their products made overseas. So yeah.
all of it. All of it. Yeah. Yeah, that's one I would be buying the dip on for sure. We'll say Q's just can't get the momentum going so far, Steve. 457.85, just not really able to get anything moving here so far. We seem to be in a range between that 457
ISM numbers now
lows.
coming out at 50.8. Estimate was 52.9. So this is really not good for ISM. This is really bad. We're getting very close to contraction here on manufacturing, and I think that's kind of what Trump's kind of been talking about, right? Is that there's a problem here. Anything under 50 is a contraction. So 50.8, you're right at the levels. Prices paid 60.9 means they had to up their numbers to pay a little bit. That's come down with manufacturing and new orders at 50.4, almost a contraction where there's no new orders. That's a bad thing. And of course, employment in the ISM services area, 46.2 means less people in the restaurants too as well. So this is interesting data here. This is probably adding to the negativity. And it also says that Fed needs to cut rates. Do it. Stop messing around.
Did see, Steve, that we're now pricing in four cuts from the Fed this year now.
Yeah. QVC announcing an agreement with TikTok to go 24/7 live shopping stream.
Okay. No, what I will say, Steve, also is I guess Trump's right. He can get the Fed to cut rates without making them cut rates, huh? All he had to do was put tariffs on every country. Okay, Steve, we're going to take it out of here. We got Trade the Pool coming on next for a little bit, and then we've got Jeremy Vreeland in with Matthew Tuttle for their show at 11 o'clock. I am back at 12:30 with Michael Shore from Prosper Trading Academy, and then you've got your good friend. Why don't you tell everybody who's coming on this afternoon with you, John?
Jim Iorio, from Chicago, SIBO. I'm very excited about that one. This was going to be one where we talk about the markets from the options side, so I'm very excited about that one.
So busy day on Quasar Markets, everybody. Keep your heads up. The world isn't ending here. Keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you're watching everything. You know, it's going to be a bumpy ride today without a doubt. So
the
play it
10-year
close.
just fell below the 4% handle here for the first time since October. There it is, 4.014.
There you go, Steve.
But we hit low 4
today. So there you go. We'll see you all in a little bit.